Chapter 1. Count Dracula's Castle. Jonathan Harker's Diary. The 3rd of May. Bistritz. I left Munich at 8:35 in the evening on the 1st of May, and I arrived early the next morning. My train was an hour late, so I didn't have a lot of time to visit Budapest. But it's a lovely place. The west meets the east here. Some of the places in the town are almost Turkish. The bridges over the river Danube are beautiful. The following morning, we left on time. We arrived in Klausenburg late in the evening. I stayed the night at the Hotel Royal. I had an excellent dinner, chicken with hot red pepper. I asked the waiter about it. It's a national dish called paprika Händel. I must ask for the recipe. I want to give it to Mina. I'm going to meet an important man. He lives in Castle Dracula. He's a count. The castle is in the east of the country. It's between Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina. It's in the middle of the Carpathian Mountains. I'm going to his castle tomorrow. The Count wants to buy a house in England. Mr. Hawkins, my employer, has sent me here. We found a large house for the Count. It's in the village of Carfax. I have some drawings to show the Count. I also took some photographs with my Kodak. It's quite an old house, but Mr. Hawkins says it's perfect for the Count. I hope Count Dracula likes it. I didn't sleep very well after my dinner. My bed was comfortable, but I had a lot of strange dreams. A dog was howling under my window. It howled for a lot of the night. I was also very thirsty, perhaps because of the paprika. I had more paprika for breakfast in a dish called implatata. It was also very good. I must ask for the recipe for this dish too. After breakfast, I went to the station. My train was at 8 o'clock, and the journey was beautiful. We passed small towns, castles, hills, and rivers. It was early evening when I arrived here in Bistritz. An old lady at the Golden Crone Hotel was expecting me. She gave me a letter from Count Dracula. It has directions for my journey tomorrow. The 4th of May, I'm writing this while I'm waiting for the coach. The coach is going to take me to Count Dracula's castle. This morning, I asked the old lady and her husband about Count Dracula. I asked about his castle. They looked very frightened. Then they made the sign of the cross several times. They said they didn't know anything. They didn't want to talk about it. A little later, the old lady came to speak to me. "Do you have to go, sir? Do you have to go? Tomorrow is St. George's Day. Tonight at midnight, all the bad things in the world will happen. You don't understand. Don't go, sir. Please wait until after St. George's Day." Then she took a cross from her neck. "For your mother," she said, and she put the cross around my neck. It was very strange. I must ask the Count about it. Ah, here's the coach. Goodbye for now. The 5th of May. The castle. I got on the coach and waited for the driver. He was talking to the old lady. They were talking about me. I didn't understand a lot of what they said, so I opened my little language dictionary. The words I heard didn't make me feel very happy. I heard Stregowica witch, then Vrolok and Volkoslak. Wolf or vampire? I must ask the Count about this too. When the coach left, there were a lot of people at the coach station. They all made the sign of the cross. Then they pointed 2 fingers towards me. Again, I didn't feel very happy. I asked another passenger about this. He said that it was a sign against evil. The people wanted to protect me. But why? I didn't understand. This journey was also very beautiful. The fields were green and the apple trees and cherry trees were full of flowers. In the distance, we could see the snowy mountains. The coach driver drove very fast, but sometimes the road was difficult. "These hills are difficult for the horses," I said to the driver. "At home we usually walk if the horses have problems. Why don't we walk?" But the driver didn't want us to walk. "The dogs here are evil," he said. "It's too dangerous to walk." It began to get dark. The driver stopped for a moment. He lit the lamps on the coach. Then we started again. He was driving even more quickly. He seemed frightened of something. The horses seemed tired, but the driver didn't stop. He went faster and faster. We were getting near to my meeting place, the place where I had to meet Count Dracula's driver. When we arrived, it was completely dark. There was no one there. All the other passengers wanted me to stay on the coach. They wanted me to go to Bukovina. Then there was a sound in the distance. It was the sound of horses. We could see lights too. Count Dracula's coach was coming. The Count's driver got down from the coach. He was a tall man with a large black hat. His hat covered his face, but I could see his eyes. They looked red in the light from our lamps. He went towards our driver and said, "Why are you so early? Did you want to miss me? Don't you want the gentleman to come with me?" He smiled. It was a hard smile. He had very thin lips and very sharp white teeth. Our driver seemed afraid and he didn't answer. I got onto the Count's coach. The Count's driver helped me. I could see that he was incredibly strong. The 4 huge black horses started off very fast. I was cold. I was also a little afraid. The driver put a coat around me and we went on into the night. I looked at my watch and the light from the lamps. It was nearly midnight. In the distance I heard a wolf howl. Then another and another. It got louder and louder. I was afraid and the horses were afraid too. The driver spoke to them and they became quiet. He wasn't afraid. It got colder and colder. Snow started to fall. Suddenly in the distance I saw a blue light. The driver saw it too. He got down from the coach and went towards the light. He held up his hand. The wolves stopped howling. Then, strangely, the wolves disappeared. We drove on. Then I saw it, the castle in the distance. Count Dracula's castle. The horses took us to the front of the castle. It was huge, dark, and frightening. The driver helped me down from the coach. Again, I saw that he was very strong. He put my bags down next to me. Then he disappeared with the coach and horses. I was alone. I was alone in front of the huge castle door. I stood in silence and looked for a bell. I couldn't see one. I was frightened. I didn't know what to do. What kind of place was this? Where was I? I waited and waited. It seemed like a very long time. Then I heard something. Someone was coming to the door. Slowly the huge door opened. A tall man stood in front of me. He was holding a lamp. He had a long white moustache and was very pale. He was dressed completely in black. He spoke to me in excellent English. "Welcome to my home. Please come in." Then he shook my hand. His hands were incredibly strong. It almost hurt me. "Count Dracula?" I asked. "Yes, I'm Dracula. Welcome to my home, Mr. Harker. Come in. The night is cold and you're probably tired and hungry." Then he picked up my bags and I followed him. He took me up the stairs and along a long corridor. More stairs. Then along another corridor. The castle seemed dark and depressing. At the end of the second corridor, he opened a huge door. "Here, this is your room. I hope you'll be comfortable." I was happy to see the room was full of light. There was a beautiful fire. "Thank you, I'm sure I will be," I said. "Now, when you're ready, please come downstairs for supper." The Count left me. I washed and I changed my clothes. Then I went downstairs to have something to eat. The food was excellent. There was some chicken, some cheese, and some salad. The Count didn't eat anything. "I had my supper before you arrived," he said. While I ate my supper, I looked at the Count. He was tall, with a thin, sharp nose. He had a lot of hair on his head, but he also had hair on his hands. His face was pale and his lips were blood red. His teeth were very white and very sharp. 2 of them were longer. These 2 teeth came over his lips. They looked like a dog's teeth. He looked very strange. "And now you must go to bed," said the Count. "Sleep for as long as you want." In the distance we could hear the wolves howling. "Listen to them. Listen to the music they make. They're like the children of the night," said the Count. I was surprised. I didn't like the sound of the wolves. The 7th of May. I had a good day yesterday. I woke up late and went downstairs. Breakfast was ready. There was a note on the table. "I have to go away for some time today. Enjoy your breakfast. Do not wait for me. D." After breakfast, I looked around the castle. It's a very strange place. A lot of the doors are locked. It's very quiet. The only sounds I hear are the sounds of the wolves. In some rooms there's some beautiful furniture and there are some beautiful pictures. In other rooms some of the furniture is dirty and old. I haven't seen any servants. Strangely, there are no mirrors in the castle. I used my small travel mirror to shave this morning. This afternoon, I found a kind of library. I was very happy to find some English books in there. The Count says I can use the library at any time. I can also go into any rooms in the castle except the rooms which are locked. In the evening, he asked me about the great house in Carfax. I told him about it. I showed him my Kodak photographs of it. It's not a very nice place. It's old and big and a little bit depressing. It has an old chapel in the gardens. There's a psychiatric hospital near it, but there aren't many houses. The Count thinks that's a good thing. He doesn't like places which are full of people. He likes old places. He seems happy with it. I still think he's a very strange man. Again, we talked until late. Again, I had my supper alone. The Count didn't eat with me. The 8th of May I woke up late this morning. I seem to be living my life at night, not during the day. While I was shaving, the Count came into my room. I was surprised, so I cut myself. I couldn't see him in my mirror. I turned around, and he saw the blood on my face. He tried to attack me. He seemed to want my blood. Then his hand touched the cross on my neck. He moved back. Almost immediately, he became calm. Then he surprised me again. He took my mirror and threw it out of the window. It broke into 1,000 pieces. Now, how am I going to shave? I had my breakfast alone. The Count wasn't there. It's strange. I've never seen him eat or drink. After breakfast, I looked around the castle some more. It's on the edge of a very high cliff. Below it, there's a huge forest. More importantly, there isn't an exit. All the doors are locked. The only way out is through the very high windows. An impossible exit. It's a prison, and I'm a prisoner. I'm a prisoner here. Chapter 2. The Horrible Dream. There's no way out. I'm a prisoner here. The Count has made me a prisoner. But why? Earlier today I saw the Count in my room. He was making my bed. Then, later, I saw him laying the table. This means he definitely doesn't have any servants. Does this mean that he was also the coach driver? The coach driver who brought me here? Does this mean that he can talk to wolves? Can he make wolves be quiet by holding up his hand? I'm feeling very afraid. Is this why the people of Bistritz didn't want me to come here? I must find out more about the Count. But I must be careful. Midnight. I talked to the Count for a long time. I asked him about Transylvanian history. He likes to talk about history. He's very interesting when he talks about it. He loves to talk about war and blood. He talks about war like he was there at the time. He's related to Attila the Hun, and he's very proud of it. I now think he's a dangerous man. The 12th of May. The Count says I must stay here for a month. I've written to Mr. Hawkins, my employer, to tell him the news. Count Dracula asked me to write. I also wrote to Mina. I didn't say anything about the Count in my letters. I didn't say anything about being a prisoner. I gave my letters to the Count. I'm sure he'll read them. The Count is busy again this evening. He's told me to be careful in the castle. He says I must be careful where I go. I must be careful where I sleep. I must only sleep in my own room. I must be careful not to fall asleep anywhere else. He says the castle is old. If I fall asleep in another room, I'll have bad dreams. Bad things can happen in this castle. Later, when the Count left me, I went to my room. I looked out of my window and I saw the Count. He was climbing out of his window. Then he climbed down the cliff. He wasn't climbing like a man. He was climbing like an animal. Then he disappeared into a gap in the cliff. The 15th of May. Tonight I saw the Count go out of his window again. Again he climbed down the cliff like an animal. I watched him go. I picked up my lamp. I went to look around the castle some more. This time I went to new places. Places that I know the Count goes. A lot of the doors were locked. Then, on one corridor, I found a door which wasn't locked. It was difficult to open, but I pushed it hard. The room inside was very light. There were no curtains at the window. The moon lit the room brightly. Now, here I am, in this room, writing my diary. I like this room more than my room. It doesn't feel like a prison. Later. The morning of the 16th of May, I finished writing my diary and put it in my pocket. Then I felt sleepy. I lay down on the sofa and went to sleep. I had a horrible dream. At least I hope it was all a dream. It seemed so real to me. I was in the room, asleep. There were 3 young women. They came towards me. 2 of them were dark. They looked very like the Count. They had red eyes and long, sharp noses. The 3rd was blonde. All 3 of them had very white teeth and very red lips. I thought their lips were beautiful. I wanted them to kiss me. Then the blonde woman came towards me. She came to kiss me. She licked her lips. She showed me her teeth. She had teeth like the Count, teeth like a dog. I could hear her breathing near me. I could feel her teeth on my neck. I waited. Then, suddenly, I heard the Count. He pulled the woman away. His eyes were on fire. He was very angry. He shouted at the women. "Have that," he said. He threw a bag on the floor. Something or someone inside the bag cried. I woke up in my own bed. Maybe it was a dream, or maybe the Count carried me here. My clothes are in the wardrobe, but not in their usual place. My watch has stopped. I usually check it before bed. There are other small things too, but my diary is still here. It's still in my pocket. So perhaps it's my imagination. The 19th of May, I went down to look at the room in daylight. I want to know the truth. The door was locked from the inside. Now, I don't think it was a dream. I think the women wanted my blood. I'm definitely in trouble. Last night, the Count asked me to write 3 letters. He told me to put different dates on them. He told me what to write. In one, I said that my work is nearly finished and that I'm coming home soon. In the second, I said that I'm leaving tomorrow. In the third letter, I said that I'm now at Bistritz. I dated the letters June 12th, June 19th, and June 29th. Now I know. I must die before June 29th. The 28th of May. There's a chance of escape. Some workers have come to the castle. They're camping outside. I must write some letters. Perhaps the workmen will post them for me. I wrote 2 letters, one to Mr. Hawkins and one to Mina. I wrote Mina's in shorthand. I'm sure the Count can't read shorthand. Then I put them around some money. I threw them to the workers. One of the workers took off his hat. He smiled. Then, about 5 minutes later, the Count came in. He was holding the letters. They were open. He looked at me. He was angry. Then he threw the letters into the fire. He left the room and closed the door. He locked the door behind him. Now I'm a prisoner in my room, as well as in the castle. I went to bed. I was very tired. The 31st of May, this morning, I looked in my bag for paper and envelopes. They were missing. I looked in my wardrobe and my travelling clothes weren't there. My big coat is also missing. All my useful things are missing. All the things which are useful to me outside the castle. What's going to happen to me, the 17th of June? Earlier today I was sitting on my bed. I heard a sound of horses outside. I looked out of my window. There was a team of horses there. They were pulling a cart. There were a lot of long wooden boxes on the cart. 2 workers were taking the boxes off the cart. The boxes looked like coffins. Then the workers went away. Later they came back with more boxes. The 24th of June, before morning last night, the Count left me early. He went to his room and locked the door. I went to the window. I looked for him. After about half an hour, I saw the Count. He was wearing my travelling clothes. He was carrying that horrible bag. He wants people to see me in the town. He wants people to see me posting letters. He wants people to see me doing bad things. Everyone is going to think I am bad. Later I woke up. I heard wolves howling. I heard the Count in his room. I also heard someone crying in his room. Was it a child? Then I looked outside. There was a woman there. She saw me at the window. "Give me my child, you monster! Give me my child!" she screamed. She was crying. The Count called out of his window. Suddenly, hundreds of wolves appeared. The woman screamed again. The wolves licked their lips. Then they attacked her. Now she was dead, like her child. The 25th of June, I never see the Count during the day. I always see him at night. Why is he always awake at night? Perhaps he sleeps during the day. I need to find some keys to the castle. Perhaps I can climb the cliffs like the Count. Perhaps I can climb into his room. I'm going to try today. Same day. Later I'm back in my room. I did it. I climbed into the Count's room. It was empty. I looked for the keys to the castle and to the Count's room. I didn't find them. Behind a door, there were some stairs. I went down the stairs. They were dark. They went outside. They went to a graveyard. It was near an old chapel. In the graveyard, there were a lot of the wooden boxes, the same wooden boxes from the cart. There were 50 of them. All of them were full of earth. I looked inside the boxes. In one of them, I saw the Count. Was he dead? Was he asleep? I didn't know. His eyes were open, but he didn't look dead. His face wasn't cold. It was warm. His face was pale, but it was always pale. His lips were very red. I still didn't know. Was he dead or was he asleep? It was horrible. I ran back to the Count's room. I climbed back to my room. I was very frightened. The 29th of June, the 29th of June, the same date as my third letter. The last of the 3 letters the Count told me to write. The Count is going to England tomorrow. He says I can leave tomorrow too. But why can't I go tonight? I asked the Count. He opened the front door of the castle. Of course you can go, he said. Go now. I looked out of the door. There were hundreds of wolves outside. They were howling at me. I couldn't leave. Later I heard the Count. He was talking to the 3 women. Tomorrow. You'll have everything tomorrow, my lovelies, he said. So tomorrow is my last day. I must escape. I can't go tonight, but I'll try to climb down the cliffs. Tomorrow. The 30th of June. Morning. This morning there's a lot of noise. The workers are putting the boxes onto carts. There are a lot of horses. The Count is leaving. My room is locked. I'm a prisoner here. I must try to climb the cliffs. Mina, I hope I see you again. If you find this diary, remember me. I love you very much. Letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westenra. The 9th of May, dear Lucy. How are you? I'm fine. I'm studying a lot at the moment. I'm learning to write in shorthand. I want to help Jonathan with his work. I'm also learning to use a typewriter. I'm now quite good. When Jonathan and I are married, I can type his work for him. I had a letter from him yesterday. He's coming back soon. He's writing a diary. I'm going to write a diary too. A lot of people say it's very good for you. They say it helps your memory. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. I've never been to Whitby, but I love the sea and I love the sea air. Tell me everything. When you write to me, I haven't had any news from you for a long time. I've heard some stories about a tall, handsome man. Who is he? Write soon. Love, Mina. Letter from Lucy Westenra to Mina Murray. Wednesday. Dear Mina, thank you for your letter. Yes, you're right. There is a tall, handsome man. His name's Mr. Arthur Holmwood. We go out together sometimes. Sometimes he comes to our house. Mother likes him a lot. Oh, Mina, I think I love him. And I think he loves me. Please don't tell anyone. Write to me soon. You're my best friend in the world. Love, Lucy. Chapter 3. Renfield's. Thank you and thank you again for your lovely letter. Now, I have more news for you. Today has been a fantastic day. 3 men asked me to marry them. Yes, 3. And all on the same day. I feel very sorry for 2 of them. Mina, I'm so happy. Please don't tell anyone, but of course you can tell Jonathan. Number 1 was Dr. John Seward. A few months ago, Arthur introduced me to him. He's very clever and very interesting. He's only 29 years old and he's already an important doctor. He's the head doctor in a psychiatric hospital. I like him very much, but I don't love him. We've decided to stay friends. Number 2 came just after lunch. He's a man from Texas. His name's Mr. Quincy P. Morris. He's a very nice man. He's also a friend of Arthur's. But I'm sorry. I said no to him too. He was sad, but very kind. Then came number 3. I don't need to tell you about him. Yes, Mina, it's Arthur. Arthur wants to marry me. I'm so happy. I hope he'll still be friends with John and Quincy. They're all very nice men. I don't want him to lose his friends. But Mina, I'm so happy. Love, Lucy. Dr. John Seward's diary. Recorded on phonograph. The 25th of May. I'm sad today. Yesterday, I asked Lucy to marry me. She said no. I've decided to think about my work. That usually helps. So I went to see some of the patients. There's one patient who's very interesting. Name, R.M. Renfield. Age, 59. Sometimes calm, sometimes angry, sometimes depressed. Very strong. Possibly dangerous. I must talk to him more. I want to find out more about him. Mina Murray's diary. The 24th of July. Whitby Lucy came to meet me at the station. Whitby is a lovely town by the sea. There's an old abbey at the top of the hill. Next to the abbey is a graveyard. It's on a cliff. There are some wonderful views up there. People often go up there to walk. Lucy and I went for a walk there this afternoon. There are some lovely walks along the cliffs. You can sit there too and watch the ships in the harbour. The 1st of August. We went up to the Abbey again today. We sat in the graveyard and looked at the view. Lucy talked a lot about Arthur. She talked about her wedding. I'm happy for her, but I was also a little sad. I haven't heard anything from Jonathan for almost a month. Later, I went up to the graveyard alone. I could see the lights from the ships. I thought about Jonathan. I hope he's well and nothing has happened. I want to see him. I miss him. Dr. Seward's Diary. The 5th of June, Renfield is a very interesting patient. He has the look of a killer in his eyes. But he has a good quality. He likes animals. At the moment, he likes flies. The flies are his pets. He's got a lot. He gives them sugar and they come to him. I think that there are too many. The 18th of June. Now Renfield likes spiders. So spiders are his new pets. He gives the flies to the spiders. The spiders eat them. There aren't many flies left now. The 1st of July, Renfield has now got a lot of spiders. He's got a notebook where he writes lots of notes. I think they're notes about the spiders. The 8th of July now, he has a new pet. He's got a little bird. There aren't so many spiders now. He gives the spiders to the bird. The bird eats them. The 19th of July, Renfield has now got a lot of birds. They come to him for food. I went to see him. He was very pleased to see me. He asked me for something. I want a kitten, he said. I want a kitten that I can feed and feed and feed. I was ready for this. First he had some flies. Then he had some spiders. His spiders ate the flies. Then he had some birds. His birds ate the spiders. Now he wants a cat. I understood his plan. I'll think about it, I said to him. He looked at me. He was angry. He's an interesting patient. Evening I went to see Renfield again. He was crying. He asked me again and again, "Can I have a kitten? Please, please, please." I said no. The 20th of July I went to see him this morning. He was happy. He was giving sugar to flies again. There weren't any birds in his room, but there was some blood. He says the birds have gone away. I think he's eaten them. He's definitely a killer. He needs my help. Mina Murray's Diary. The 26th of July. I'm very worried. Lucy isn't sleeping very well. She's walking in her sleep. Tonight I'm locking the door. I don't want her to hurt herself. Her mother, Mrs. Westenra, thinks this is a good idea. The 3rd of August. There's still no news from Jonathan. I looked at his last letter. It's a little strange. It's in his writing, but he seems very formal. I hope he isn't ill. I hope he's all right. I'm not sleeping very well because Lucy is still walking in her sleep. She gets out of bed, then she goes to the door. When she finds it's locked, she goes to look for the key. I'm worried about her. The 6th of August. The weather is very stormy today. Lucy and I went up to the cliff. The fishing boats were all coming home before the storm. A kind old man came to talk to us. His name's Mr. Sails. He was once a sailor. We all saw a ship in the distance. The old man thinks it's an empty ship. He can see by the way it moves in the wind. He says the ship will probably come to the harbour tomorrow. The storm will bring it. Reports from the Daily Graph newspaper, from Mina Harker's diary, the 8th of August. Whitby. Report by George White Whitby. Storm mystery. During last night's terrible storm in Whitby, a Russian ship, the Demeter, came into the harbour. The captain of the ship was dead. He had a cross in his hand. There was no one else on the ship. People saw a huge dog. It jumped off the ship and ran up the hill to the graveyard. Local people have tried to find the dog. They want to give it food. The 9th of August. Whitby. Report by George White. Russian captain's diary. Found. The Russian ship, the Demeter, is carrying 50 wooden boxes. They're full of earth for scientific research. A Whitby lawyer, Mr. Billington, has instructions to send them to a house in the village of Carfax. No one has seen the huge dog. A translation of the captain's diary follows. The 14th of July. The sailors are afraid. They say that there's something on the ship. Then they make the sign of the cross. The 19th of July. Petrovsky is missing. Olgarin says there's a strange man on the ship. The 26th of July. Another sailor disappeared today. The other men are all frightened. I have my gun with me. We can't find the strange man. The 30th of July. There are only 4 of us on the ship now. I don't understand what's happening. The 3rd of August. Someone cried in the night. I went to look outside. There was no one at the wheel. I've searched the ship. I'm alone. I'm the captain. I must stay with my ship. Help me, God. The next page was blank. What happened on the Demeter? We demand to know. The 10th of August. Whitby. Report by George White. Dead Dogson. Baker's Farm. Another Whitby mystery. Who or what killed the dogs on Baker's Farm? William Baker found his dogs this morning. They were covered in blood. Is Whitby safe? Mina Murray's diary, the 8th of August. Lucy didn't sleep very well last night. She got up twice and got dressed. I put her back to bed. I think the storm disturbed her. This morning we went down to the harbour together. It was a beautiful day. The air was clear and fresh. The old sailor was right. The empty ship was in the harbour. The poor captain was dead. Some people saw a huge dog. It ran off the boat. Lucy and I tried to find it. We wanted to give it some food and water. We couldn't find it. The 10th of August. It was the poor captain's funeral today. Some of the sea captains from the harbour carried the coffin up the hill. All the sailors followed. My kind old sailor, Mr. Sales, wasn't there. He died this morning too. They found him by our favourite seat, near the Abbey. He had a broken neck. People say he looked frightened. What happened to him? I want Lucy to sleep well tonight. We're going to go for a long walk. Then she'll be tired and she'll sleep. The 11th of August, 3 a.m. I can't sleep now. I'm too worried. I woke up at about 1 o'clock. Lucy wasn't here. I went downstairs to look for her. The front door was open. I ran outside and looked in the street. There was no one there. I looked for her everywhere. Then I thought about the Abbey and our favourite seat. I began to climb the hill. Then I saw her. She was lying on our seat. Was she sleeping? There was a man near her. Lucy. Lucy, I shouted. She didn't answer. The man looked up and I saw a very white face and red eyes. Then he ran away. Lucy was still sleeping, but she looked cold. I put my coat around her neck, but I think I hurt her. I saw a little blood on her neck. There were 2 small marks there. Then I woke her up. I carefully took her home. I put her to bed. I locked the door and have the key around my wrist. Same day, much later, night time, I woke Lucy in the morning. She didn't look tired after her busy night. She looked very well. We had a happy day together. We had a picnic by the sea with Mrs. Westenra. I'm sad that Jonathan isn't here. I miss him very much. Again, I've locked the door of our room. The key is around my wrist. But I don't think there'll be any problems tonight. The 12th of August, I was wrong. Lucy got up twice in the night. She was asleep, but she seemed very worried that the door was locked. Both times she went back to bed, but she was almost angry. Chapter 4. The marks on her neck. Another quiet day. Lucy is looking very well. I'm happy she's herself again. Again, she woke me up in the night. This time she was sitting in bed. She was still asleep, but she was pointing to the window. I went to the window and opened the curtains. It was very light outside because the moon was very bright. It was beautiful to see the light on the sea. There was also a large bat in the distance. Once or twice it came quite near to the window. Then it flew away across the harbour and up to the Abbey. Perhaps I frightened it. I went back to bed. Lucy was lying down again and sleeping very quietly. The 14th of August. We went up to our cliff again today. We were reading and writing all day. Lucy loves it so much, sometimes she doesn't want to come home. Today when we were coming home, she said a strange thing. His eyes, his red eyes again. They're the same. I was surprised and I looked at her. She wasn't asleep, but she looked like she was dreaming. She was looking at our favourite seat. I wasn't sure. Was someone sitting there? Later, after Lucy was in bed, I went for a walk. It was a beautiful evening. I went to the harbour and looked at the sea. On my way home, I saw Lucy at the bedroom window. The window was open and she was looking out. I think there was a large bird next to her. Then I saw that she was asleep. I came upstairs quickly. I didn't want her to get cold. When I came into the room, Lucy was already in bed. The bird wasn't there. Lucy was holding her neck. I think she was cold. I'm worried. I hope she isn't ill. I closed the window carefully and locked the door again. The 15th of August. We had a happy surprise at breakfast. Arthur's father is better. He wants Lucy and Arthur to get married soon. Mrs. Westenra is happy, but sad, too. She's ill. She's got a problem with her heart. Her doctor says she must be careful. She's very weak and a sudden shock could kill her. I'm sorry. Lucy knows that her mother is ill, but she doesn't know that it's so serious. I've promised not to tell Lucy. The 17th of August. Lucy is tired and very weak. She's still walking in her sleep. Her face is very pale. The marks on her neck are still there. They aren't any better. I'm worried that she's ill. Tonight I woke up and she was sitting by the window again. I went to close the window and she went back to bed. She was breathing very strangely. I think I'll ask the doctor to come. I'm very worried about her. The 18th of August, I'm happy today. Lucy is much better. She slept well last night and didn't walk in her sleep. She has some colour in her face, but she's still pale. We went up to our seat and looked at the view. We talked and talked. Lucy talked about that night. She said it wasn't a dream, but she saw something with red eyes. She said she saw me before I woke her up. It was very strange. I didn't want her to talk about it anymore. So we talked about other things. We talked and laughed. More and more colour came into her face. When we came home, Mrs. Westenra was very happy. She agrees with me. Lucy looks much better. The 19th of August. I'm so happy. News from Jonathan. I'm happy, but I'm sad too. He's been very ill. That's why he didn't write to me. I got a letter this morning from a nurse. Her name's Sister Agatha, and she works in a hospital in Budapest. Jonathan was too ill to write, but wanted to send me a letter. She wrote the letter for him. He wants to see me. He loves me and misses me. I'm leaving as soon as possible. Lucy is going to send my things home. I can't wait to see him. Letter from Mina Harker to Lucy Westenra, Budapest. The 24th of August. Dear Lucy, here I am in Budapest. I'm with my Jonathan. He's pale and ill, but it's lovely to see him. Now I can be his nurse. He doesn't remember a lot of things. Sister Agatha says that he's shocked. Perhaps he'll never remember. She says that he talked of terrible things in his sleep. I asked her about them, but she won't tell me. She says that they're Jonathan's secrets with God. She's a very good person. Jonathan doesn't remember what happened to him. He gave me his notebook. He wrote everything in shorthand. He doesn't want to read it himself. He doesn't want to remember things. He says I must read it if I want to. I put the book under his pillow. I don't want to read it now. I'll only read it if Jonathan asks me to. The most important news: we're getting married this afternoon. I'm going to be Mrs. Mina Harker. Lucy, I'm so happy. Love, Mina. Letter from Lucy Westenra to Mina Harker. Whitby, the 30th of August. Dear Mina, I hope you can come home soon with Jonathan. The air here is very good. I'm sure it'll be good for him. I'm feeling much better. Arthur is here, and we're having a wonderful time. I'm not walking in my sleep at all at the moment. Arthur and I are getting married on the 28th of September. I'm so happy. Mother hopes you're well. She sends her love, Lucy, Dr. Seward's diary. The 20th of August. Renfield is often very violent during the day. Then he's very quiet at night. He's escaped 3 times in 3 nights. Each time he goes to the door of the chapel at the great house in Carfax. He doesn't do anything there. He just stays there, with his face against the door. Tonight we found him there again. He was talking to someone. He said, "I'm here, Master. I'm here for you." Then he calmed down. He was looking at a big bat in the sky. He was smiling. He seemed to like the bat. We took him back to the hospital. I hope I can help him. Letter from Arthur Holmwood to Dr. Seward. The 31st of August. Dear John, I'm worried about Lucy. I think she's ill. She's getting paler every day. Her friend Mina was worried about her. Now I'm worried too. I must go to my father. He's very ill again, but I really need your help. Can you come and see her soon? Your friend, Arthur Dr. Seward's diary. The 1st of September. Today, I went to see Lucy Westenra. Arthur is right. There is something wrong. She's very pale and looks very weak. I don't know what's wrong with her. I'm going to write to my old teacher, my good friend, Professor Van Helsing. I'm sure he can help us. He knows a lot about people who walk in their sleep. I hope he understands my letter. He's from Holland, and sometimes he has problems with his English. Letter from Professor Van Helsing to Dr. Seward. My dear friend, does not worry. I is coming to you. I does can help you, Van H. Letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood. The 3rd of September, dear Arthur. The Professor came today. He agrees with us. Lucy is ill. She's very pale. She doesn't have enough blood. That's what the Professor thinks. He isn't sure what the problem is, but he has an idea. He's going back to Amsterdam tomorrow to do some research. How's your father? I hope he's getting better. Your friend, John Dr. Seward's diary. The 4th of September, Renfield was very violent yesterday. Now he's calm and back in his room. He's catching flies again. First he was eating them, now he's putting them in a box. He's already looking for a spider. He asked me for more sugar. I went to see Lucy this afternoon. She's looking better. When I came back, Renfield was angry again. He was shouting and screaming. Then, when the sun went down, he calmed down again. He did a strange thing. He went to his window and threw away his flies. I asked him about it. He said he was bored with them. He's a very interesting patient. When he's violent, it's never at night. It's always during the day. Telegram from Dr. Seward to Professor Van Helsing, the 6th of September. Come at once. Lucy is very ill. Chapter 5. The Wrong Address. Professor Van Helsing and I went to see Lucy today. She was very, very pale. Even worse than yesterday. Her face was white. Even her lips were white. Her breathing was very weak again. The professor said she needs blood. Lots of blood. Arthur arrived. His father is a little better. The professor asked Arthur to give his blood to Lucy. We went up to Lucy's room. The professor took some things from his bag. He gave Lucy something to help her sleep. Arthur kissed her. Then the professor gave Arthur's blood to Lucy. The colour started to come back to her face. Arthur became paler and paler. Lucy wears a black band around her neck, with a beautiful diamond in the centre. The diamond was a present from Arthur. When the professor touched Lucy's head, the band moved a little. Both the professor and I saw 2 small marks on her neck. They were quite red. The professor seemed shocked and very worried. Arthur didn't see the marks. I took him back to his room. He needed to lie down. When I came back into Lucy's room, the band was covering her neck again. I asked the professor about the marks. He couldn't tell me about them. He's going back to Amsterdam tonight. He says there are books there that he needs. He says I must stay with Lucy all night. I mustn't leave her. He says I mustn't sleep. I must watch her all night. The 10th of September, I stayed awake with Lucy for 2 nights. At first, she didn't want to sleep. She was afraid. Then, I promised to stay with her and to wake her up if she had a bad dream. Both nights she slept very well. Yesterday she looked much better. I was very, very tired last night. Lucy told me to sleep. It was a good idea. I slept on the sofa in her room. This morning, I woke up when the professor came into the room. I opened the curtains and the light came into the room. Lucy didn't wake up. She was whiter than white. There wasn't any time. She needed blood. This time I gave her my blood. When she woke up, she looked better. The professor told me to go home. He told me to sleep. He's going to look after Lucy. The 11th of September this morning, I went to see Lucy. She's much better. While I was there, some flowers arrived. The professor took them to Lucy. I helped him to put the flowers around her room. Then we made a necklace of flowers for her. The flowers don't smell very nice. They're garlic flowers. The professor says they're Lucy's medicine. She doesn't like them very much. She wants to get better, so she's wearing them. I think it's a very strange medicine, but I trust the professor. He knows what he's doing. He told Lucy not to open the door or the window of her room. Then we left. He says we can sleep well tonight. Nothing will happen to Lucy. He's sure. The 13th of September. The professor and I went to see Lucy this morning. When we arrived, Mrs. Westenra came to meet us. You'll be happy to know Lucy's better. I went to her room a short time ago. She's still sleeping. I went to her room in the night. I was worried about her. She was sleeping well, but the room smelled horrible. I took away those horrible flowers and I opened the window. It smells much better now. At this news, the professor went white. Mrs. Westenra went away. Then the professor put his head in his hands and cried, "What has the lady done? What has she done? What has she done?" he said again and again. We ran upstairs to Lucy's room. She was very, very ill. This time the professor gave his blood to Lucy. "You aren't strong. You gave your blood last time," he said. "Now you must help me. Help me to give my blood to her." Then we put flowers around the room again. We closed the window and left Lucy. She was sleeping quietly and she looked better. We went downstairs to see Mrs. Westenra. The professor talked to her about the flowers. "The flowers are a medicine, Mrs. Westenra. You mustn't take them away. They must stay in the room. Please remember, they must stay." Then I left. I hope Lucy will be all right. She seems calmer when she has the flowers with her. The professor is going to stay with her. The 17th of September, I was in my study after dinner when I had a shock. Renfield ran into my room. I don't know how he got out of his room. I must ask the nurses. He had a knife in his hand and he attacked me. He cut my wrist. There was quite a lot of blood. When he saw the blood on the floor, he calmed down. Then he lay on the floor and tried to drink the blood like an animal. It was horrible to see. The nurses ran in. They picked him up and took him to his room. He was still calm, but he wanted more blood. The 18th of September, I got a telegram from the professor this morning. It arrived very late because he put the wrong address on it. Telegram from Professor Van Helsing in Amsterdam to Dr. Seward in Carfax. The 17th of September, I am in Holland. Go to Lucy's house tonight. Watch her. Do not leave her alone. I'm very worried. The telegram was a day late. Lucy was alone last night. I must go to her immediately. Note from Lucy Westenra. The 17th of September. I'm writing this because I don't know what to do. I'm alone and I'm frightened. Last night, I went to bed as usual. I put the flowers all around my room. In the middle of the night, I woke up. There was a noise at my window. I looked out and saw the huge bat again. Then in the distance, I heard a dog howling. The noise got louder and louder. I tried to go back to sleep, but I was afraid. Then Mother came into my room. She said she was worried about me. Then we heard the noise at the window and she saw the bat. She looked frightened and a little shocked. I told her to sit down. I didn't want her to be ill. I could hear her heart. After a while, we heard the howling noise again. This time it sounded very near. Suddenly there was a loud noise at the window. A lot of broken glass fell on the floor. Then, there, in the middle of the room, we saw a large wolf. We both screamed. Mother jumped up and tried to hold on to me. She pulled the flowers from my neck and then fell onto the floor, on top of me. I hit my head. The room seemed to go around in circles. The room was full of strange blue lights. Then the wolf went away. I couldn't move. My mother was on top of me. The servants ran into the room. They lifted my mother up. She was dead. They put her on the bed. They were all very frightened. I told them to go away. I told them to get some tea and to calm down. I put my flowers on my mother's body. Then I waited for one of the servants to come back. No one came. I called out. Still no one came. I went to the kitchen to look for them. They were all asleep on the floor. I looked around the kitchen. I found a small bottle of medicine. It was empty. Was my mother's medicine. It helped her to sleep. I smelled the tea in the servants' cups. I could smell the medicine. Now I'm back in my room with Mother. I'm alone with the dead. I can hear the wolf. It's howling outside. I can see the blue lights all around my room. I'm very frightened. I think I'm going to die. I'm going to put this note in my pocket. Someone will find it when I die. Goodbye, dear Arthur. I love you. Dr. Seward's Diary. The 18th of September. I went to Lucy's house immediately. When I arrived, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. I knocked at the door, but no one came. I tried all the doors and windows. They were all locked. Then I heard someone behind me. It was the professor. When he saw me, he was very shocked. Did you get my telegram? Why are you here? Where's Lucy? I told him everything. He went very pale. He tried all the doors and windows too. Then he said, "We must get inside. We must break a window." We broke one of the kitchen windows and climbed inside. We saw the servants on the floor. We ran up to Lucy's bedroom. There we saw the two women. Lucy was lying next to her dead mother. She was cold, but she was breathing. Lucy was alive. We took her to another room. A note fell out of her pocket. We put her in bed and covered her up. She began to get warmer. The professor looked very worried. She must have blood. You're too tired. You can't give more blood. I'm too tired. But she must have blood. She must have blood again. Then there was a voice at the door. Can I help? Can I give my blood to dear Lucy? It was my old friend, Quincy Morris. He had a telegram from Arthur with him. Quincy, go to Lucy's house. No news from Seward. Father is very ill. I can't go myself. Please go to Lucy. See if she is all right. Arthur. It was good to see Quincy, and it was good he was here. Quincy was strong. He gave his blood to Lucy. Then the professor gave me Lucy's note. I read it and gave it back to him. It seems a mad note to me, but the professor is worried. He doesn't think Lucy is mad. He put the note back in Lucy's pocket. Then he took the band off Lucy's neck. The marks are still there. They almost look bigger. He covered the marks with a scarf. Quincy and I went to talk. I told him everything. He's going to help us. He's going to sit with Lucy too. He's going to watch her. The 19th of September last night, Lucy slept badly. She had some bad dreams. When she woke up, she was very ill. It's strange, but when she's awake, her breathing is very weak. When she's asleep, it's better. Another strange thing is her teeth. Perhaps it's only the evening light, but when she's asleep, 2 of her teeth look longer. She wanted to see Arthur, so he sent a telegram. Quincy went to meet him at the station. Lucy was very happy to see him. She looked a little better, but she's still very ill. It's now nearly midnight. Arthur and the professor are sitting with her. I'm going to sit with her at 1 o'clock. Then the others can sleep. I'm very worried about her. I don't think she's going to get better. I'm worried that she's going to die. Chapter 6. The Bloofer. What a terrible few days. Lucy's mother, then Arthur's father. And now... Yes, now Lucy. I sat with her all night until 6 o'clock. Then the professor came in and opened the curtains. She was very, very pale and her breathing was terrible. He took the scarf off her neck. He was obviously worried, so I went to look at Lucy. Where were the marks? The marks on her neck weren't there anymore. The professor looked at me. She's dying. Bring Arthur here. He must see her. I brought Arthur into the room, and Lucy smiled at him. He smiled too, and went to kiss her. No, not now, said the professor. Hold her hand. You can kiss her later. He held her hand, and she went to sleep. A short time later, her breathing was better. She opened her mouth a little. Again, 2 of her teeth seemed longer. She opened her eyes and spoke. Her voice was very strange. Kiss me, Arthur. Kiss me." Arthur went to kiss her, but the professor stopped him. "No, Arthur. No," he shouted, and he pulled Arthur away from Lucy. Arthur and I were shocked and surprised. Lucy's face was almost angry. She closed her mouth and her eyes and went back to sleep. Her breathing was weak again. "Now you can kiss her," said the professor. Arthur held her hand and kissed her. A few moments later, she died. Arthur is a broken man. We all three loved her, but Arthur was hers. It's terrible to see him. It was strange, but when she died, some of her colour came back to her. Usually people are paler when they die, but Lucy almost looked better. I turned to the professor. "She's beautiful, isn't she? She's so peaceful. It's difficult to believe that she's dead. Now she can have some peace. It's all over for her." "Yes, she's beautiful, but this isn't the end, it's only the beginning." "Wait and see," he said. We made the preparations for Lucy's funeral. The professor put some garlic flowers in her coffin. He put a gold cross on her mouth. Mina Harker's diary. The 24th of September, Jonathan and I are now at home, in our new house. Today has been a terrible day. When we arrived home, there was a telegram for me. Lucy is dead. So is her mother. Their funeral was yesterday. She was my best friend. Jonathan is asleep. He's still ill. He had a bad shock today. We were walking in London. Suddenly, Jonathan stopped. He looked very frightened. "It's him, he said. He was looking at a tall, thin man. The man was very pale and had long, white teeth. He had a very hard face. I didn't like him. Jonathan took my arm and we ran away. When we got home, he gave me his diary. He has asked me to read it from the Westminster Gazette, the 27th of September, a Hampstead mystery. Strange things are happening in Hampstead. Last night the police found a small child in the park. It was very late at night. The boy was very weak. He had 2 small marks on his neck. The marks are something like marks that an animal could make, like a bite from a dog. The police took him to hospital. When he was feeling a little better, the boy talked about the bloofer lady. This isn't the first time. A similar thing happened 2 nights ago. 3 other children also came home with marks on their necks. They all talked about the bloofer lady. Police think the children mean the beautiful lady. The police are watching for small children alone, late at night. They're also looking out for a dog. Letter from Professor Van Helsing to Mina Harker, the 28th of September. Dear Mrs. Harker, my name's Professor Van Helsing. I'm a friend of Dr. Seward and Arthur Holmwood. I'm writing to you because I helped poor Lucy before she died. Arthur gave me Lucy's letters and diary. I read them, and I know you are her best friend. I think you can help me. I must speak to you soon. Best wishes, Van Helsing. Mina Harker's diary. The 30th of September, I sent a telegram to Professor Van Helsing. He came to see me yesterday. He's a very nice man and he's very interesting. I gave Jonathan's diary to him. It's going to be very useful to him. I told him about the strange man Jonathan saw on Thursday. The professor is very worried about it. He's going to read Jonathan's diary. Then he's going to talk to me again. Jonathan Harker's diary. The 2nd of October this morning, I met Professor Van Helsing. He's a very kind and intelligent man. He's read my diary and some of poor Lucy's letters. He wants to help me. He also wants me to help him. Dr. Seward's diary. The 2nd of October this afternoon, the professor came to see me. He showed me a story in the newspaper. Someone or something is attacking children in Hampstead. The children have strange marks on their necks. The marks are exactly like the marks poor Lucy had. The professor talked to me very seriously. He asked me to believe him and to trust him. I was shocked by what he said. He says the marks the children have on their necks weren't made by an animal. They were made by Lucy. I don't see how this is possible. Lucy is dead, but the professor is certain. It seems mad to me, but I know the professor. He isn't mad. Tonight, we're going to visit one of the children in hospital. Then we're going to the graveyard. We're going to watch. The professor says that we'll see Lucy. Later, it's late, but I can't sleep. Tonight was an incredible night. I'm very shocked. We went to see the child in hospital. The marks on his neck are the same as the marks on Lucy's neck. The little boy talked about the bloofer lady. He wanted to go and play with her. The professor told the doctors and nurses to watch the child carefully. After dinner, we went to the graveyard. It was quite late. The professor took a key from his pocket. He unlocked the Westenra tomb and we went inside. In the light from his lamp, we read the names on the coffins. He found Lucy's coffin and started to open it. I was very shocked and I tried to stop him, but he continued, "You must believe me. You must trust me," he said. "Now, look. Look inside." The coffin was empty. Lucy wasn't there. It was incredible. The professor is coming again tomorrow. This time we're going to the tomb in the daytime. He says I need to see something more. The 3rd of October, we went to the Westenra tomb this morning. The professor opened Lucy's coffin again. This time, she was inside it. I was very surprised. The professor explained to me that she isn't dead. She isn't alive. Poor, poor Lucy. She's undead. The marks on her neck came from a vampire. Now, she's a vampire too. Her teeth are very long, like a dog's teeth. The professor says that Lucy is the bloofer lady. She's biting the children. Lucy is drinking their blood. It's horrible. He says we must save her and we must save the children. He says we must kill her. If we kill her, then she'll be safe. He wants Arthur to help us too. I don't know what to think. How can we kill Lucy? She's already dead. But it's true. She isn't the lovely Lucy anymore. She's a vampire and a monster. I hope Arthur will understand too. Later. This afternoon, Arthur, Quincy and I all went to meet the professor. He told Arthur and Quincy that we must go to Lucy's tomb. He said that we must open her coffin. Arthur was very angry but listened to the professor's story. I also told Arthur about Lucy's empty coffin yesterday. Then I told him about this morning. The professor explained to Arthur that Lucy is undead. The only way to save Lucy is to kill her. He said we must put garlic in her mouth. We must cut off her head and put a stake through her heart. Arthur thought this was horrible. He said the professor mustn't do it. The professor asked Arthur to trust him. After dinner, we all went to the graveyard. We opened Lucy's coffin. Arthur and Quincy were very scared. Then they looked inside. It was empty. They were very shocked. The professor closed the coffin and we all went outside. The professor locked the door of the tomb. He put garlic around the door. He put a cross on the outside of the door. Then we all waited behind some trees. After a short time, we saw a woman in the graveyard. She was holding something. Then we heard a small cry. It was a child's cry. The woman came nearer and we could see her in the moonlight. It was Lucy. But she wasn't the same lovely Lucy. Her face was hard and evil. She looked horrible. Arthur was very shocked. We went towards her. She was standing by the door of the tomb. The professor held up his lamp. She was holding a small child. There on Lucy's face we could see blood. There was blood all around her mouth. There was blood on her dress. Her eyes were red and angry. She saw us and threw the child onto the earth. Then she saw Arthur. She came towards him and opened her arms to him. Arthur wanted to kiss her. Luckily, the professor stopped him. The professor stood in front of Lucy with a cross in his hand. She didn't like it and ran back towards the tomb. She was very angry. Her face was horrible. Arthur began to understand. Then the professor took away the garlic and the cross on the door. Lucy went inside. She went inside through a small gap, without opening the door. Now we're all sure. Lucy is undead. We took the poor child to the hospital. I hope he'll live. The professor says we must go back to the graveyard in the daytime. We must kill Lucy. Tomorrow. Chapter 7. Finding the Boxes. Arthur, Quincy. The professor and I all went to the graveyard together. The professor unlocked the door of the tomb. He had a large bag with him. We went over to Lucy's coffin and the Professor opened it. Inside, Lucy still had blood around her mouth. She looked hard and horrible. Arthur looked at her. His face was hard too. He now hated her. This thing wasn't Lucy. This thing was a vampire. Now, Arthur, you loved her more than any of us, said the Professor. You have the right to save her. Do you want to help her? Yes, tell me what I must do, said Arthur bravely. Use this hammer. Use it to hammer this stake through her heart. We must all pray. Arthur took the stake and hammered it into the vampire's heart. The monster screamed. It was a horrible scream. A river of blood came out of its mouth. The body shook and shook. Then more blood came out of its heart. Blood was everywhere, but Arthur didn't stop. He hammered and hammered. We prayed and prayed. After a while, the vampire stopped shaking. There was silence. We all looked at the vampire in the coffin. It was Lucy. She looked beautiful. She wasn't a monster anymore. Arthur kissed her. Now you're free, he said. Arthur and Quincy went outside. The Professor and I cut off the top of the stake. We left the rest of it in Lucy's heart. Then we cut off her head. We filled her mouth with garlic. The Professor closed the coffin and we went outside too. The Professor locked the door of the tomb. Now, my friends, he said, we've finished the first part of our work. The next part is to find Count Dracula. We must destroy him. I must go back to Holland. I need some more information. Now let's go back to my hotel. We must make a plan. I want you to meet Mina and Jonathan Harker. They're coming to Carfax to stay with you, Seward. We must all work together. The Professor gave me a copy of Jonathan's diary. The Professor says it'll help me understand everything. The 5th of October, earlier today, I went to meet Mina Harker at the station. I recognized her immediately from Lucy's description of her. She shook my hand warmly. The Professor is right. She's a very good, intelligent lady. Her husband, Jonathan, is coming later. He's gone to Whitby to find out more about the 50 boxes of earth. Later, I showed Mina my phonograph. She thinks it's a wonderful machine. She thinks it's even better than using shorthand. In some ways, I agree with her. But there's a problem. If I want to listen to my diary, sometimes it's difficult to find the right part or the right day. Mina's going to help me. She's brought her typewriter with her. She's going to type my diary for me. I think that's a good idea. It'll be difficult for her to read, but I want her to know all about Lucy. I've read Jonathan's diary. Mina wants me to read her diary too. We all think the time has come to share. We need to destroy Count Dracula. There must be no secrets between us. I hope that Jonathan will find out a lot in Whitby. We need to know about the boxes. Where did they go? If we find out about them, we can find the Count. We can destroy him. Jonathan Harker's diary. The 7th of October, I met Mr. Billington at the station in Whitby. and he immediately took me to his offices. He's a friend of my employer, Mr. Hawkins. He was very happy to help me. He gave me a lot of information about the boxes. The 50 boxes which the Count sent here to England. The letter with them said 50 boxes of earth for scientific research. Mr. Billington sent the boxes to London on the instructions of the Count. He sent them to King's Cross Station. When I got back to London, I went to speak to the officers at the station. 50 boxes of earth arrived, and 2 men took all 50 of them to a chapel. Where's the chapel? Near Dr. Seward's hospital, in Carfax. I'm now sure that all the boxes of earth arrived in Carfax, but are they all still there? I don't know. We must find out as soon as possible. Dr. Seward's diary. The 7th of October, Jonathan returned from Whitby today. He's a very nice man. The professor's also arriving today, and Arthur and Quincy are arriving later today too. Mina has finished typing up my diary. Jonathan and Mina are putting together all the information from all our diaries and letters. They want to put everything in order of time and date. It's going to be very interesting. Jonathan has also brought some of the letters from Mr. Hawkins, his employer. They're about the Count's house, and some of them are from the Count's lawyer, Mr. Billington. There's information in them about the Count's instructions and his movements. There's also information about the boxes. The dates are very interesting. They seem to have a link with Renfield. There's a link with Renfield's violence and the dates of the Count's movements. I'm sure there's a connection between Renfield and the Count. The letters are going to help us. This afternoon, I went to visit Renfield in his room. He's very quiet. In fact, he doesn't seem mad at all. He saw Mina in the gardens this afternoon. He asked me about her. Who's that woman? She isn't the woman you wanted to marry. That woman's dead. I know she is. I was surprised. How did Renfield know about Lucy? Later, after dinner, we all met in my study. It was good to see the professor again. The professor put his golden cross on the table. We all held hands. We made a promise together. We promised to find the Count. We promised to destroy him. The professor's plan is very good. First, we must go to the great house and search the chapel. We must find the boxes, and we must sterilize them. The professor wants Mina to stay here. She'll be safe here. We're going to the big house later tonight. While we were talking, Quincy jumped out of his chair. He pointed at the window. There was a huge bat there. It was trying to get inside. Jonathan Harker's diary, the 8th of October, 4 a.m. We've just returned from Carfax. I can't sleep, so I'm writing this. The professor gave each of us a cross and some garlic. He took out some skeleton keys from his pocket. I tried some of them. One of them worked perfectly. I unlocked the door and we went inside the house. There was a horrible smell. A smell of death and dying. We went from room to room. There were boxes and papers and letters everywhere. In one room, hundreds of rats appeared. It was horrible. We only found 29 boxes. 21 boxes are missing. We must find the other boxes. While I'm writing, I'm looking at my lovely Mina. She's asleep and she's so beautiful. Perhaps she's a little pale. I hope she isn't ill. I'll ask her in the morning. Mina Harker's diary. The 8th of October, I woke up very late this morning. In the night, I had a strange dream. I don't want to tell Jonathan. I don't want him to worry. In my dream, I heard a lot of dogs howling. There was a large bat. Then it wasn't a bat. It was Renfield. Then it wasn't Renfield. There was a person with very red eyes. There was a white fog. Then I saw a very white face, very close to mine. Then everything became black and dark. I didn't like it. Today, I feel very tired. I'm worried about this dream. It's like one of the dreams in Jonathan's diary. I think I'll ask Dr. Seward for some medicine tonight. Perhaps he's got some medicine to help me sleep. Jonathan Harker's diary. The 8th of October evening. This afternoon I spoke to some of the workmen in the village. I asked them about the boxes. 2 of the men delivered the boxes to London. They delivered 6 to an address in South London and 6 to an address in the north. They say I need to speak to a man called Sam Bloxham. He probably knows about the other boxes. I'm going to London tomorrow. I think Count Dracula is making homes for himself all over London. We must stop him. The 9th of October. What an exciting day. I found all the boxes. Mr. Bloxham was very helpful. He delivered the boxes to different addresses. At each address there was a tall, thin man there. The man helped Mr. Bloxham with the boxes. The man was very pale and very, very strong. He had strange red eyes. Mr. Bloxham saw the Count. Count Dracula is definitely in London. I'm still worried about Mina. She looks very pale and tired. Dr. Seward's diary. The 9th of October, Renfield's changing from one moment to the next. 1 minute, he's happy and calm. Then the next, he's violent, angry, or depressed. Some of the nurses say they can hear him in his room at night. Sometimes he's talking very loudly. They think he's talking to himself, or that he's praying. Earlier today he was very calm, but depressed. He talked about life. He talked about the life of the flies, the spiders, the birds, and all the animals he's eaten. He's afraid of their ghosts. I'm now certain that he has a link with the Count. When I left, he seemed confused. Later, I heard him singing in his room. He seemed very happy. The 10th of October. How can I start? This has been an incredible day. Late last night, I went to see Renfield. He was lying on the floor. There was blood all over him. He was badly hurt. I cleaned the blood and put Renfield into bed. He was thirsty, so I gave him some water. He talked about the Count. I asked a nurse to find the Professor, Quincy, and Arthur. Renfield told us his story. We all listened very carefully. The Count has often been inside the hospital. He's visited Renfield and has given him flies, spiders, and sometimes rats. The Count can get into buildings through very small gaps. Then, the incredible news. The Count has recently visited Mina. But where was the Count now? There was no time to lose. We ran to Mina's room. Jonathan was on the bed and his eyes were closed. He couldn't move. Count Dracula was there. There was a cut on the Count's chest. The Count had his hands around Mina's neck. He was holding her very tightly. She was drinking the Count's blood. The Count was making her do it. It was horrible. He looked up. His eyes were red and his face was incredibly pale. He threw Mina onto the floor and came towards us. The professor stood in front of him with the cross and the garlic. We were ready to kill him. Then the moon went behind a cloud. The room went dark and the Count escaped out of the window. We gave Jonathan some water and he woke up. He saw the blood and he saw Mina. He held her. She was very, very frightened. She cried and cried. "I'm unclean, I'm unclean," she repeated over and over again. I went back to look after Renfield, but there was nothing more I could do for him. Later that night, the poor man died.